Every one of us is in some way a parent or a leader or teacher to people younger than us. We merit to have our own children or grandchildren or whatever the context may be. And children at different times will ask you things about, like, they'll say, I've never done this before. So, what's gonna happen there? What's gonna happen there? I've never been to a Pidyon Haben. What's gonna happen there? I've never been on an airplane. What's gonna happen there? I never had surgery. What's gonna happen there? I've already had a very nice time here, catching up with old friends, seeing people whom I know, seeing people whom I love, meeting new people, and I was sort of having a plain old happy good time sitting right there 2 minutes ago. And when your esteemed leader got up and began to speak, I became overwhelmed, actually, by the sanctity of the moment and the sanctity of the people with whom I'm gathered. There's a word that's often used in the popular press where people say, and I think that when they say it, they actually often use it, and it's the exact opposite of its meaning. And they say that they're humbled. They say they're humbled when they're bragging about winning something great and important. But I really mean it when I tell you that sitting here as a person who's been involved with a few taharas over the years, 5, 8, I don't know exactly, over a long period of time, to know that I'm in the presence of people who take responsibility for this holy task, and to be with the people who support them, to be with the shomrim, who take time at a moment's notice. It's truly overwhelming to think about how special this gathering is, and it's my first one. I've never been to a Zayin Adar gathering before, so I'm not quite 50 years old, and I got it in just under the wire in the first 5 decades. Here I am at a gathering of this magnitude and this beauty. So I'm overwhelmed by the beauty of this gathering, really. And I hope I'll be able to make an important contribution, because you deserve chizuk and so much more. But the Ribbono Shel Olam, the Master of the Universe, is ne'eman litein schar. The Ribbono Shel Olam is can be relied upon to give the reward for all the secret moments, all the things that you've done behind closed doors, all the dignity that you show, all the commitment that you show. That I am not afraid to say I can guarantee you, not because of any level of prophecy, but just learning a few Rashis and Chumash that promise you that he is ne'eman, can be relied upon to give you your just reward, this world and the next. You should see fruit from all that you do here, and there's no doubt that you'll see fruit. It's a privilege to be in the context of community rabbis and community leaders. Rabbi Jacobs and I go back almost 40 years. I'll say this because I'm sure there'll be some smiles. There are probably people here who know Camp Mosheva in Wild Rose, Wisconsin, and that's where we first met in 1986. And Hirsches, who are formerly of our community, Jeff, who's there from time to time. It's a great privilege. Thank you, Adam, for setting everything up. Appreciate it very, very much. And thank you for all that you do. I know these people everybody feels a tremendous debt of gratitude to you, and would express much more flowery words. But you'll have to, we might reward you with a voucher for some new ties. That's all. The Medrash Tanchuma in Parashas Kisisa says that Moshe Rabbeinu came to Hashem and said, when I die, will I be remembered at all? Strange question. What will happen? And the Ribbono Shalom said to him, whenever they read Parshas Shkolim, whenever they read the parsha that we just read in last week's extra reading about the giving of the half shekel, which comes up again in next week's parsha, next week's Sedra, whenever they read that, you will be there again. Very strange dialogue. What is the significance of the half shekel and Moshe Rabbeinu's presence in the world? The Din of a Rebbe, the great Bnei Yissaschar, says that every person is comprised of pairs of agents on his head. And every month corresponds to different elements of what goes on the face. Tishrei is connected, it corresponds to the skull, and the next 2 months to the ears, the next 2 months to the eyes. Sometimes in Kabbalah you'll see the nose as a pair of nostrils, sometimes you see it as singular. Here he says it's singular, and the mouth is singular as well. And when that is described about how the world corresponds and our experiences and our capabilities correspond to different elements of our face, what is not being described is that which is underneath the surface. Because when you look at a head, it's true that you see those obvious facial features. But what you don't necessarily see, but is perhaps the most important, is the seichel, the brain, the mind, the faculties of judgment. And the Bnei Yissaschar explains that the shekel that is given is from the language of the word lishkol. Lishkol means both to give, to give that kind of money. It implies this money question of shekel. But the deeper meaning of the word lishkol means to judge. Popular phrase in English, when people speak in English but they use Hebrew words, is shikol hadas, that it requires a certain cheshbon, a certain calculation. And what is the shikol hadas? The weighing of the judgment. Because shekel is really weighing. And so a person is created with the possibility of doing what's right and doing what's wrong. The person stands always, in the language of the Gemara, as chetzia l'Hashem and chetzia lachem. Half this way and half that way. What we need is good judgment. The source of our good judgment is the Torah. The Torah is the source of our good judgment, and Moshe Rabbeinu is keneged, he corresponds to that seichel. Because Moshe Rabbeinu is from the Dor Deya. He's from the generation of knowledge, the generation of clarity, the generation of good judgment. Because they were the receivers of the Torah. And he in that way becomes the paradigm, we might use in modern parlance, the mascot. The representative of that very reality, and Moshe Rabbeinu corresponds to the seichel, to the mind. The day we gather on now, Zayin Adar, is of course Moshe Rabbeinu's yahrzeit. It is the day on which we recall how HaKadosh Baruch Hu buried Moshe Rabbeinu, and that you, all of you, in whatever way you're involved, are engaged in the work of God. You are doing as Hashem did. You are holich bidrachav. You are going in His ways. But it's also the yahrzeit of Moshe Rabbeinu. And Moshe Rabbeinu is the presence of mind that allows that which could go one way or could go the other way to go the right way. Because every person has temptations. Every person has desires. Every person has good inclinations. We want to do the right thing. But we're stuck with having to make a judgment. That's why Moshe Rabbeinu's representation is the machatzis ha-shekel. Because half of the shekel, half of the mind already wants to do the right thing. You want to do the holy things. You don't want to run after temptations. But we have to give the other half of the shekel, the other side, to become focused that we do the right thing. And we're not alone. Says Hashem to Moshe Rabbeinu, when they read about the machatzis ha-shekel, your presence is there again. Certainly here in the celebration of your work, Hashem's presence and Moshe Rabbeinu's presence, is there again in every generation. With great Torah leaders in every generation, it's always there. We can rely upon great people to ask them, what judgment should we make? But there's something deeper going on here, which I think needs to be explored a little bit, which is so exciting. The Mishnah says in Pirkei Avos at the beginning, and I'm sure many, if not all, know these words. Aseh lecha rab uknei lecha chaver. Make for yourself a teacher and acquire for yourself a friend. Moshe Rabbeinu, of course, represents that side of the Rav, Aseh lecha rab. But Rabbeinu Yonah points out that the language knei lecha chaver is more intense. Knei is more intense than aseh. It implies like even spending money. You have to spend money to have friends. So in case you think you don't spend money to have friends, you should meet my mother. Okay? Because when her friend's kid, now grandkid, gets engaged, it's like an engagement present, a shower present, going to the chasana, a wedding present, making Shevra brachas, and then she's already kanana hara, buying clothes for the pidyon haben. You know what I mean? So it costs a lot of money to have friends. I can see some people saying that's autobiographical for me. It costs a lot of money to have friends. So says Rabbi Yonah, because friends are even more important than your teacher. Because there are certain things you can only gain from Chevra, from being together with others, peers. And in a world that is about so many disparate things, so many people so independent, so much like life is lived like you're on a 737. There may be 150 people there, but everybody's alone. People daven in shuls, minion factories, 737. There may be 150 people there, but everybody's alone. Life is so often lived like that, but not a Chevra Kaddisha. A Chevra Kaddisha is essentially together. A Chevra from which we can all benefit. We can all get back to true north because we're with great people. We can all find out what is the right way to end all the confusion. And tonight, we stand on the eve of Purim and Pesach, which is really one season, it seems to me. As the Gemara says in Maseches Megillah Daf Zayin, that when the question came up, in which month should Purim take place when there are 2 Adars? This year, of course, we only have 1, but when there are 2, we all know it comes in the second Adar. But in the engine room of Judaism called the Talmud, where the thing is being figured out, the Gemara explains why it happens in the second month of Adar. It says it happens in the second month of Adar because it has to be near Pesach. Purim and Pesach have to come together because of a smichas geula legeula. There has to be redemption and redemption coming together. And the redemption of Pesach and the redemption of Purim really are one thing. They are where the Jew goes to end the confusion, to figure out who's in charge. You gather at the Pesach Seder to proclaim that Hashem is in charge. We gather in all the places that we'll gather this 1 week from tonight. In all the places we'll gather from Colorado Springs to East Denver, to Southeast Denver, to West Denver, to Scottsdale, Arizona, or wherever else you may be. We'll gather in all those places even to listen to that story, to remind ourselves that there's a master of the universe behind it all, that there's clarity, that there isn't confusion. And I want to explain this idea of clarity and confusion with some deep concepts that I hope, even though they're not exactly about your work here, they're about the work of all Jews. And I hope it'll be of help to all of you. When Adam and Eve, when they sin at the beginning of time, both of them and the serpent, the Nachash, receive timeless punishments forever. And the punishment, I think maybe Adam got off it kind of easy because he doesn't have this thing called childbirth pains, and but he didn't get off so easy. He's told, "B'zeh asapecha tochal lechem." You'll have to, the sweat of your brow you'll eat. But then he's told something very fascinating. He's told an agricultural message, seemingly. that when you plant, who here knows what will come out of the ground when Adam plants? What is it? Kotz v'dardar. Tatzmiach lach. You will plant, and what are the English translations of kotz and dardar? Thorn and thistle. Yes, so I actually gave this class recently, and I said, I know what a thorn is, and I've spoken about this many times, but I don't know what a thistle is. That's very dangerous in 2024 because you immediately get people Googling to show you a picture. I was enjoying it when I didn't know what a thistle was. Why are you going to ruin my next presentation? Now I'm going to Denver and I know what a thistle is. I can no longer, say, but it's a very sort of strange phrase. In the Garden of Eden, in the original time, what the punishment will be is that you're going to plant, and what's going to come forth is a thorn and thistle. Thorn and thistle? Kotz v'dardar? What does it mean? So I want to explain what has gone on from the beginning of time and what is going on now and how the role of every parent and grandparent, every person here is overcoming that moment in Gan Eden when we made that mistake that we are continuing to be misaken, to correct, and we will be zocha be'ezras Hashem to the tikkun, ultimate tikkun that will lead to the geula. But until that time, we are still falling victim to kotz v'dardar tatzmiach lach. You will plant, and what will come forth is thorn and thistle. The Gemara says in Maseches Chulin that Haman is found in the Torah. It asks a weird question: where is Haman, the bad guy? Haman. Boo, exactly. Exactly. So where is he found in the Torah? And the Gemara says that he is found in Gan Eden. In the Garden of Eden, when Hashem asked the question, Hamin ha'etz, asher tzivisicha levilti achol mimeno achalta? Did you eat from the tree that I told you not to eat from? Now, first of all, the question is strange. Strange question. That did you? Where is he found in the Torah? He's not in the Torah. He's in the book of Esther. But then to answer it, he's found in the Garden of Eden. I would have said he's found actually right there in the words the man, like the manna bread. Haman. It says it there clearly. But that's not what the Gemara says. He's found in the Garden of Eden. He's found in the question. I once heard from Rabbi Akiva Tatz a most beautiful explanation, but it's frightening, the explanation of what happened between Adam, first Adam, and Hashem in Gan Eden. How does a person sin? How does a person walk out in life? All of us do it every day, probably. I do it every day. I don't know about you. We walk out in the world and we do things that we're not supposed to do. We don't live up to the rules. We either violate a rule that we know is a rule, or we schloof through accomplishing something that we know we're supposed to accomplish. This is that thing called a sin. We don't like to talk about it. Don't tell everybody. Okay? But this is an avera, and we do things wrong. How is that possible? The answer is that Adam and Chava were once in the Gan Eden. They knew HaKadosh Baruch Hu. They knew Hashem. The Nachash began speaking to them. Now they should have said to the Nachash, stay out of our business. You have no business talking to us. That's what she should have said. You're the Nachash. I'm Chava. Leave me alone. She didn't say that. Because, I don't know, I can't speak, it's a little over my pay grade to say exactly what her motivation was. But I know our motivation. Our motivation sometimes can be, let me not really pay attention to the whole story. Like, there is Hashem, there isn't Hashem. You know what I love? I love confusion. Confusion, there is, there isn't. He did speak at Har Sinai, he didn't speak at Har Sinai. Talmud is true, Talmud isn't true. Whatever it is, just turn on the radio. Oldies, classic rock, 80s, sports, weather, shtuyot, whatever you want, okay? Just turn something on. I don't want to hear it. I want confusion. I want to not think about what's really important. I want to have noise enter my life so I don't have to think about what's really important. It used to be that the Yetzer Hara was outside of man, and it came in the form of the Nachash, the serpent. But man invited into his world confusion. Because confusion, maybe he's watching, maybe he's not watching. Maybe there is God, maybe there isn't God. Confusion, also known as safek, doubt, is something that lets me off the hook. It's something that allows me to do whatever I want to do. So it's a little bit delicious. It's a little bit delicious to not know. Is he listening? Isn't he listening? That, by the way, my friends, is the job of Amalek. Amalek, they came after we were riding high out of Egypt. Here we are. Everybody knows the story. Chosen people, miracles, Kriyas Yamsuf, 10 Makos. Everybody knows. We even know. Even the Jews know that the Jews are the chosen people. It's amazing. I go through airports all over the world. People tell me all the time I'm the chosen people. So other people seem to know, but even the Jews knew that they are supposed to serve Hashem at Har Sinai. Comes Amalek, and Amalek says, not so fast. You guys are just regular folks. We're going to fight with you. You can be defeated. Amalek loses, but they create that doubt. They place us back into confusion. Are we something different and special and destined or not? That's what the Gemara says, that we'll read this coming Shabbos. Asher karcha baderech. The Torah says, not the Gemara. Asher karcha baderech. And Rashi says that they were the ones who jumped into the hot water. They may have been scolded, but they cooled down the water. They created confusion. That's Amalek's job. Amalek is always here to create confusion. Now everything's going to get better after this line. We're going to talk about something that's very exciting and better. But at this line, it's a little bit uncomfortable. After Adam sins, Hashem comes to him and says three things. He says, Ayeka, where are you? Mihi gid lecha ki erom ata. Who told you that you're naked? Hamin ha'etz asher tzivisi chalavot yachol meno achalta. Did you eat from the tree that I told you not to eat from? I just want to tell you, I'm uncomfortable right now. Actually, really uncomfortable. When Adam sinned, he invited into his world confusion. And God's response to him was, not, I know where you are. I know why you did that. I saw what you did. God's response to him was, where are you? Who told you? Did you eat? Maybe I don't know what happened. Doubt. Confusion. 3 questions. Maybe I don't know. Am I here or am I not here? Am I omniscient and I omnipresent? Maybe I don't know. Where are you? Maybe I don't know where you are. Wait a second, God. Don't you know where I am? You're God. You're supposed to know where I am. You're supposed to know who told me. You're supposed to know that I ate. You're God. But Hashem says, you want confusion? You got confusion. You want confusion? Here it is. And Ayeka, as some of you may know, is that those 4 letters spell a different word. Eicha. The words of Tisha B'Av. Aleph Yud Chaf Hei. Destruction is in the moment. You invited in confusion, you got confusion. Where are you? Who told you? Did you? That's a very, very uncomfortable place for Adam to be. But we're still in it. We're in a place of confusion. Maybe he's watching, maybe he's not watching. For a moment, let me think he's not watching, so I can just share this fantastic piece of Lashon Hara, which makes me so excited to badmouth this other guy. And it's worth that sometimes. It's not even about badmouthing the other guy, it's about showing off that I was the first one to know. So pathetic. So pathetic. Like, I've got the dish, so listen. Well, you're the Chevra Kaddisha, you probably never speak like that. Maybe I'm not relating to you clearly. But listen, we do things wrong. And for what? For a moment of ephemeral shoving off the yoke. I want to do whatever I want to do. God, could you get out of my way? This is why the Gemara says that when somebody sins, he doesn't sin unless nichnas bo ruach shtus, unless a spirit of stupidity comes about him. Because if you actually know what the score is, you're going to do the right thing all the time. And that's why the Mishnah says, there's an eye that sees, there's an ear that hears, everything's written in the book. And if you think about these things, you're going to do the right thing all the time. You're not going to do anything wrong. You're going to do the right things. But we allowed in confusion. We invite in confusion for the freedom of doing what we want. Comes Purim and Pesach, to clarify the confusion and let me explain. I'm going to tell you what a thistle is. It doesn't matter that it's that thing with a little bit of purple with those spikes coming off it that somebody sent me a picture of. Forget that. I'll tell you what a real thistle is. Because the Hebrew word dardar is a strange one. It's comprised of two pairs of letters, dalad resh, dalad resh. Are there any people here who teach basic Hebrew reading, like a Hebrew school teacher, basic Hebrew reading? Okay, but without that anyway, everybody knows that some Hebrew letters are confusing. It's confusing whether this is a hey or a chet. Some people are confused by ayin and sadi. For sure, samach and mem sofit. They're confusing. But dalad and resh are very confusing. If you don't know the difference in dalad and resh, they're very confusing. Actually, you may not know this. In the laws of Sifrei Torah, letter writing, the dalad doesn't even need to have a jutting out right end. You know, in a regular dalad, there's a right end at the top, like it pushes out to the right. Everybody here knows that. But it's not even required in halacha. In halacha, the only difference between a resh and a dalad is that the resh is curved and the dalad is squared. They look almost exactly alike. Almost exactly. They're like the same. But where in the Torah is there a giant dalad, and where in the Torah scroll is there a giant resh? In the giant dalad is where? Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. Giant dalad. Parshas V'eschanan Dvarim Perek Vav. Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. In that sentence, the anthem of being a Jew, we proclaim God's oneness. Every Jew says it to themselves. Every Jew says it loud and proud and knows it inside themselves day and night. At the moment, their last words in this world, if they're Zocha, Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, we proclaim God as one. Now the next question is a little bit more advanced. Where is there a giant resh? Supersized font, resh, in the Torah. Does anybody know? It's in Parshas Kisisa, next week's Parsha. It says, Lo tishtachaveh le'el acher. Do not bow down to another god, a foreign god. One place there's a big dalad, Hashem Echad, and in the other place there's a big resh, El Acher, foreign god. They're almost the same letter. Resh and dalad, almost the same letter. Perhaps their superscript spot is their paradigmatic spot. It's like the resh, the dalad in the whole Torah. When there's the resh and the dalad in the whole Torah, even though graphically they're almost exactly the same, conceptually they are diametric opposites on the most important diametric opposite in the world. Hashem Echad, there's one God. God gave the Torah at Sinai. He's watching, he's listening. We have to serve him and so on and so forth. He's protecting Klal Yisrael throughout all history. The Jewish people are special. We're all contained within him. We can have a year of classes on Hashem Echad. Hashem Echad. That's the reality of what we're supposed to say, of what we understand. That's the most important concept a Jew could ever know. It's the most all-inclusive concept. Hashem Echad. And on the other side, El Acher. No. It's not Hashem Echad. There are other forces. There is another God. And this God over here, he loves the Rockies. It's very important. You know, we want him to win, and so on and so forth, right? I say that because I'm just a forlorn Cub fan. I got to tell you, one championship every 200 years is not enough. So there's other things. We have other interests. And that's not even sinful. We have other much more sinful interests. So we want to forget Hashem Echad. We want to think about El Acher, some other force. Maybe the force in the world is the guy in the mirror, me. I want to be free to do whatever I want. You have two letters that are exactly the same except for the tiniest of differences. But when they are confused with one another, they confuse the most important idea in the whole universe. Whether Hashem Echad or there's El Acher. What is the difference between these two letters? The tiniest bit of ink. That tiny, tiny, tiny bit of ink that changes a curved letter to a squared off letter. Minuscule. Somebody told me that graphically it's 6 dots. I don't even know what that means. Tiny. That tiny bit of ink has a name in halacha. When a sofer is told where to start from or how to form something, that tiny, tiny bit of ink is called coats. Like the Gemara Menacha says, Kotzo Shel Yud. We learn things from Kotzo Shel Yud. Coats means thorn. Here's what happened in Gan Eden. Adam and Chava sinned. They wanted confusion. God responded to them. You want confusion? You got confusion. You're going to be confused forever. Forever and ever you'll be confused until you solve these issues. You're going to be confused. You won't tell the difference between Hashem Echad and El Acher, just like you want to not to deal with all the difference. You want it, you got it. Ayeka, where are you? You want it, you got it. And then you're going to plant for all of history. We're not talking about agriculture. You're going to plant ideas for all of history, lives, things you want to do. You want to be the right people, but you're always going to remain confused. Confused between what? Daled Reish, Daled Reish. Dar Dar. You're going to be confused because all that will be missing is the coats. You're going to plant and a thorn and a thistle will come out. Coats and Dar Dar. And you'll be confused. You'll be confused. Amalek is here. Now I just want you to hear that we're going to move on to a new idea in half a second. But I just told you that the difference between a Dalet and a Reish is a coats. A little thorn of ink. That's what it's called in halacha. But what's the gematria difference between a Dalet and a Reish?
4.
4 is Dalet. Reish is 200. Arithmetic yields.
6.
That's where the 6 comes from.
No. I want to know what is the difference between 4 and 200? 196.
Oh, wow.
Kuf, Vav, Sadi. Coats. 196 is the gematria of the difference between Reish and Dalet. The only difference is a little confusion. But here's where the good news starts, my friends. Enters all of Jewish history. Enter people like you. Enter people who live lives and messages that there is a difference. That we're driven people. That we give over to our children in every generation clarity. Clarity through Kriyas HaMegillah. Clarity through reading the Haggadah. We give over in this time of year, whether God is running things behind a veil of secrecy like in Purim, or right out there in the open with the opening of the sea. What we're going to do for the next 6 weeks is proclaim Hashem Echad. There's one God. In fact, the Bnei Yissaschar says that the whole secret of the Seder, Samech Daled Reish, is sewed, the secret of Daled and Reish. Of the difference between Daled and Reish. That's what we're going to do as people over the next 6 weeks. We're going to learn. We're going to listen. We're going to ask questions. We're going to get answers. We're going to clarify. Even in the midst of a terrible war and so much loss. We're going to know that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is running the world. We're going to know that we are the chosen people with a purpose, a vocation, in the words of Rav Hirsch, a vocation. An identity and a drive to be something. And we're going to give over to the next generation, one year after the other, that we are driven. So we start by eliminating Amalek. Amalek equals Safek, equals doubt. We're going to get rid of Amalek. We're going to use that Shikul Hadas that we started with, the judgments, to be able to clarify that we are the people of God. We are His representatives in this world who will proclaim Hashem Echad. Even though the basic human condition is confusion so that we can try to do whatever we want. We will learn, and we will teach, and we will know, and we will daven, and we will say all the brachas so many times a day. And we'll perform mitzvos of chesed for one another. All driven by the idea that in the world of confusion, Hashem Echad, God is one. By the way, the word Dor appears again in the Chumash. It appears in Parashas Beshalach, where it says, Milchama Lashem Ba'amalek Midor Dor. There's a war between Hashem and Amalek regarding Dor, Daled Reish. Regarding whether there's El Acher or only Hashem Echad. And it's hard out there. So we need each other. It's hard to remember to be the right thing and do the right thing. We need each other. We need a Chevra Kaddisha. We need friends to do the right thing. And we have it in front of us. Every one of us can turn to our teachers and our parents and our grandparents and the messages they gave us if they're no longer in this world. to know of the truth and protective shield of Jewish history. Because nothing says that there is a God more than B'chol Dor Vador. In every generation, they came up against us. But you, Hashem, you always were there to protect us, as we'll say in the middle of the Haggadah with our glasses raised. V'hisha Amdal Abuseinu B'lanu. We are ready to say it in, I know it's going to sound a little scary, in just 6 weeks and 2 nights. Shh. Don't tell anybody. Seder. I want to conclude my words with one more tribute to you. Because speaking about Moshe Rabbeinu, who was the teacher of all of this clarity for us, and who continues to live in every generation and whose memory is evoked tonight, and through living in every generation, through the great tzaddikim and gedolim of every generation, as well as the Chevra that we have together that lift us all up, Moshe Rabbeinu really emerges as a leader in 2 words. After Moshe is raised in the house of Paro as a little baby and then a little young man, the pasuk tells us, Vayigdal Moshe. Moshe grew up. And it continues and says, Vayetzei el achav vayar b'siv losam. He went out to his brothers and he saw their pain. In the Sharei Yosher, there's an introduction to the work called Sharei Yosher by Shimon Shkop, where he writes that is not a description of things that happen in progression. Like, it's not first Moshe grew up, then he went out to his brothers, and then he saw their troubles. It's a single description of what it means that Moshe grew up. Vayigdal Moshe grew up means Vayetzei el achav vayar b'siv losam. He went out to his brothers and he saw their pain. That is the deep meaning of what it means to grow up. A child doesn't see other people's needs. Child gets into the car, like I have the zechus today of driving carpool before flying here. And when you drive carpool, you first get to argue about seating. It's nothing compared to arguing about seating on Friday night, though. That's much more geschmack. Okay? So, you get to argue about seating. He sat there last time. Why did you get to sit there this time? A child is worried about their own need. That's it. And some people remain children in that way for decades. They're always children their whole life. But Vayigdal Moshe, that he grew up, means that he expanded himself to concern for other people. That's why marriage and childbearing of Zocha all leads to Vayigdal Moshe, to grow up. But who more than you? And of course, I don't know who here is the Chevra and who here is supporting the Chevra. But it doesn't matter. Because whether you're one of the people... When I was a child, by the way, my mother was not on the Chevra Kaddisha. But my mother was a volunteer babysitter for someone who would go to the Chevra Kaddisha. She said, Taharas are not for me. But being a teammate of the people who do Taharas, that's for me. So that you're here being that babysitter, even if you're not on the Chevra. But you, my friends, you are an embodiment of Vayigdal Moshe. That when Moshe grows up, he takes care of other people. That's what it means to grow up. To take the call in the middle of the night, to face things that nobody else wants to face. To be there from the beginning to the end with dignity and with beauty. And to care for other people who do the same. For a family moment to be interrupted because somebody has to go do it, and you're the one left at home doing the other stuff. Whatever it may be. And it's just very, very spectacular. And we need each other. We need Moshes. We need examples in this world of people who will do for others, who in that way will remind us what is true and what is right. Who in that way will stand through their chesed for Hashem Echad. That we are one, the Jewish people, and we are the people of Hashem. And in this season of Shkolim and Zachar and Moshe Rabbeinu's Yortzeit and your incredible work and Purim and Pesach, let us dedicate ourselves to clarifying the confusion that began at the beginning of time. Because that's always been the role of every individual Jew and the Jewish people as a whole. Hashem should give all of you tremendous strength to every moment of your lives represent Him beautifully, as you do when you serve your brothers and sisters, and as you do when you represent that to all the other people who are inspired to be greater and greater every day. Thank you so much for bringing me here. A Freilich and Purim, a Chag Kosher v'Sameach, and before all of it, a good Shabbos.